finally ready to get started on the mix. I'm playing back as quiet as I can on speakers here. Now I'm going to take a look at the trim levels on every channel. See if I can get a little bit more flavor from the board. By getting them at a hotter level. Bringing the acoustics down, it's actually pretty hot. So the next thing I'm going to do is apply some high-pass filtering. I'm going to start with the overheads. Try to basically build the drum sound around the overheads. Too hot there, got an over. So I'm going to bring up the high pass filter until it starts taking away too much of the bottom end. I'm going to pan these out a little bit. So it sounds like these are drummer perspective. I got the hi-hat on the left and the right on the right. That's the way I like it anyway. I want to go as wide as I can before it starts sounding strange or like there's a hole in the middle or something. It's a little bit boxy sounding. Put a sharper kind of cut. Sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to bring the kick in. And for this song, I'm envisioning a very low kick without a lot of top end on it, but very clean sounding, not distorted, just even, clean, deep. And I don't know how much of that I'll be able to get from the original kick, but I'm going to try to get as much of it as I can. Not adding any triggers or trigger drums or anything like that to start with. Just get as close to the sound that I want as possible with the original sounds. So I'm going to really boost a lot of low end here. Around 60 hertz. Now I'm going to use the high pass filter to make sure it's not overdoing it. So cutting that at about 30 or 40. And then I'm going to try to make sure it's not too muddy by dialing out some of the lower mids. So that's pretty similar to the sound I'm picturing. Okay, so that's a good start for the kick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a little parallel that's set up on the board. Distressor here. So that's really cranking that distressor so you can hear what that sounds like. I'm doing this parallel rather than just sending the kick all the way through the distressor, because it keeps a little bit of the natural sound but also gives the aggression of the compression. Usually get that nice knock top end through that. I'm going to try it without any distortion though. Keep it clean for now. That's probably too much of the distressor. So that's out, that's in. All right, let's add the snare top. I'm just going to solo the snare top for a second and see what it sounds like. High pass filter. I don't want this too high. I want to keep the bottom end of that snare. But it's got a little bit too much of a attack on it for me. So I'm definitely going to want to compress that and get a little more of a longer snare sound. So I'm listening for what I don't like. Right now the boost is to hear what I want to get rid of. And then I'm going to dial that down with a pretty tight cue. Don't want to take too much out. I'm going to put this through a compressor on the SSL. With a fast attack. Just get that longer sound, very fast release. So that gives a little bit more length to the snare and gets that initial attack out, but I'm going to get some of that attack back from the snare bottom, I assume. Let's add the bottom. So one thing I didn't do yet is check for the phase on the snare top and bottom, but easy way to do that on the board is just push that phase button, and definitely gets a lot thicker, so they're clearly out of phase, which is normal. But rather than just doing the phase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here and kind of see what's going on. So here's a snare hit. You can see there pretty much out of phase. So I take the entire snare bottom, I gotta turn off the group. Take this entire snare bottom and change the phase. So now we'll zoom back in. And that's better. But when I go a step further, basically I gotta nudge it so it's exactly in the same pattern. So that takes care of the snare. But let's also do the overheads. Bring those up here. And you can see they're kind of out of phase with the snare as well. So pop those in line, and that should help the overall sound. It'll reinforce it together instead of it competing. If the hi-hat's picking up a lot of that snare, we want that to be in phase too. Too much. So they're all reinforcing each other. That looks pretty good. Maybe a touch more. All right. See how that changes the sound. Definitely a much fuller snare. Getting a good attack from the snare bottom. Complements the longer snare top now that we have that compressed. So I take out some of the low frequencies of the snare bottom. Alright, so kick and snare with the overheads. Kick might be a little bit loud now that it's so bassy. That ride might need some help poking out in the overall mix. But the cymbals feel about right.